Hi, and welcome back to the channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Andrew Chung, and today's topic of discussion is none other than monkeypox. If you want me to discuss the details of the disease itself, leave a comment requesting that, and I'll make sure to cover that in a future video. But what today I want to talk to you about is the fact that there was a simulation of a monkeypox global outbreak in 2021 at the Munich Security Conference. And in this Munich Security Conference, which took place in 2021, over a year ago, they simulated a monkeypox outbreak that would begin the very first cases in May of 2022. And it just so happens that now we have our first cases of monkeypox breaking out in May of 2022. Like always, I'll be adding links to all documents in the description below, so feel free to check it out yourself. Today's order of events is, number one, I'm going to prove that there was a simulation and some of the details of that back in 2021. After that, I'm going to show you that there was a similar simulation that took place right before the COVID pandemic. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So let's start off here. This is the Munich Security Conference website. This is from 2021. They had to do a special edition because of the global COVID pandemic. And so they did it where they streamed it through. Instead of having a full-blown live conference, they just broadcasted it. Who were some of the participants? Well, we had Bill Gates, the founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have Tedros, the Director General of the World Health Organization. We have Joe Biden, Angela Merkel, and Boris Johnson is on this list. So pretty prominent world leaders. And what was the exercise that they ended up doing? Well, this is the report from it that happened. This happened in March 2022, where it's called Strengthening Global Systems to Prevent and Respond to High Consequence Biological Threats. So they did an exercise involving biological threats. Now, how do you get to that report? You just click right here on the page. I'll send a link in the description, so feel free to check it out for yourself. But if you look at the full report, we see a few things. So this is the report. Once again, the report was submitted in November 2021 or released, and it's for that same exact tabletop exercise that was conducted in partnership with the Munich Security Conference. So putting that two together, that link. And so what did they do during this exercise? This is what's really important. It says, exercise scenario, developed in consultation with technical and policy experts, the exercise scenario portrayed a deadly global pandemic involving an unusual strain of monkeypox virus that first emerges in the fictional country of Crimea and eventually spreads globally. Okay, wow, that's interesting. You do a germ game scenario, an exercise on a monkeypox virus, and then a year later, monkeypox shows up. But that could be just a coincidence. Let's look at what the exercise scenario shows. If you look at the scenario, this is the scenario design summary. This is page 12. And we see a few things. Number one, remember this is 2021 they're doing this exercise. Well, in 2021, they say the attack in this exercise just so happens the first case shows up in mid-May. Now we're in mid-May, and it just so happens that we get the first few cases happening in mid-May. And so you may say, oh, that's a coincidence. I say that's concerning that you have a simulation that in mid-May of the following year, you're going to have a particular virus. And it just so happens that in mid-May of that exact year, you have the exact virus that you were doing a germ game on. Just my thoughts, though. Maybe you have a different thought. So let's see how this scenario played out. By January of 2023, you had 70 million cases of the monkeypox and over 1 million people dead. Then they find out the monkeypox engineered was actually vaccine resistant. So clearly there's some sort of a vaccine rollout, and the vaccine industry is thriving because they're passing out monkeypox vaccines only to find out the strain is resistant. That's interesting. This is just a scenario. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. But this is what the closing of this scenario is. You have 271 million deaths and over 3 billion cases. That's almost half the world gets it. And so that's a very interesting scenario. Well, they did a similar simulation right before the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak. And that was at Johns Hopkins. I'll show you it right now. Johns Hopkins, and it was called Event 201. If you look at it, a pandemic exercise. Here's the link right here, centerforhealthsecurity.org, Event 201. And what did they do here? Well, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201. When did they host it? October 18, 2019. You mean just a few months before the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 pandemic broke forth on the world? Yes, just a few months before. So what did this pandemic exercise have in it right before a pandemic hit? Well, let's look at it. If you look at it, it says, to be clear, the Center for Health Security and Partners did not make a prediction during our tabletop exercise. A tabletop exercise, that's exactly what they were doing at the Munich Security Conference. Well, that's interesting. For this scenario, we modeled a fictional coronavirus pandemic, but we explicitly stated that it was not a prediction. Okay, so they're trying to convince you that they didn't predict that the coronavirus pandemic was going to happen. It just so happens that they did a tabletop exercise right before the coronavirus pandemic happened, and their tabletop exercise just so happened to have a coronavirus as its main virus that's spreading throughout the world. So, coincidence? You can read into it however you want, but let me tell you a little bit more about the World Economic Forum. We know already that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is heavily invested in vaccines, heavily invested. Now, what about the World Economic Forum? Who are they? Who are their partners? Well, let's look at their partners. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about this situation because they were participating in this tabletop exercise on pandemics. And so who are their partners? Who are they involved with? Well, one of their partners that kind of surprised me, or didn't really surprise me, was Pfizer. And Pfizer just so happened to, make a vaccine rapidly right after the introduction of the coronavirus and profit significantly. There are multiple billionaires produced just from that vaccine. Oh yes, Moderna also is involved in the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, who was hosting this event of a mock coronavirus pandemic spreading throughout the world right before a coronavirus pandemic spreads throughout the world. And yes, you guessed it, Johnson & Johnson is also a partner. And so this is very interesting, to say the least. But you may have a different thought. Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what you think. So let's summarize. A tabletop exercise with world leaders is held in 2021 at the Munich Security Conference of a monkeypox pandemic, which would start in May of 2022. And then a year later, in the exact same month, a monkeypox outbreak begins. Some of the same world leaders also held a tabletop exercise at Johns Hopkins on a coronavirus pandemic in October of 2019. And then a few months later, a coronavirus pandemic begins. Coincidence? Let me know what you think by leaving a comment below.